They didn't teach this part at Hogwarts, but someone had to create every single spell we see in the wizarding world. Lumos didn't just happen, neither did Avada Kedavra. Ever wondered who invented them, and how? Because no, magic doesn't just pop into existence when you yell in Latin and wave a stick around. Behind every charm, curse, or hex, there's a story, a risky experiment, a spark of genius, sometimes even a terrible accident. And the real kicker? Most wizards have no clue how it's done. But after this video, you will. It's no exaggeration to say that spells are the backbone of the wizarding world. Think of them as the Swiss Army knife of magic. Need to light up a room, clean a cauldron, or disarm a lunatic with a wand? There's a spell for that. But here's the catch. It's not just about waving a stick and shouting Latin. A spell only works when three things line up perfectly: the wand movement, the pronunciation, and most importantly, the wizard's intention. Skip one, and you might end up turning your cat into a footstool. Permanently. Wand movement is like choreography, only with way more risk of explosions. Even a slightly off gesture can backfire. Literally. Remember when Ron tried to curse Draco with "eat slugs" in the Chamber of Secrets? Slugs came, all right, just not from the right end. It's a perfect example of why precision matters. Magic isn't forgiving, and it definitely has a sense of humor when you mess up. Then there's pronunciation, which makes every Hogwarts student suddenly care about phonetics. Say it wrong and you might make feathers combust instead of levitate. Poor Seamus Finnegan was practically the poster boy for magical misfires. "It's Leviosa, not Leviosar," Hermione once corrected, and honestly, she saved them all from probably getting roasted by a floating candle. Enunciation isn't just pedantic, it's survival. But the real secret ingredient? Intention. You can flick, swish, and pronounce like a magical prodigy, but if your mind's off wandering about butterbeer or someone's hair in potions class, the spell fizzles. Magic reads your focus like an open book. That's why young witches and wizards often struggle. Hormones are powerful, sure, but magic demands undivided attention. Still, even when spells go wrong, there's something deeply human about it. It reminds us that magic isn't perfection. It's practice, trial and error, a bit of chaos, and a lot of growth. And once you master the basics, well, things get a little more intense. Because there's a level of magic that doesn't need words, or even wands. Now, here's where things start getting serious. You know that moment in a duel when the room goes silent, and suddenly a wizard just thinks something and boom, someone's flying across the room? That's nonverbal magic. No dramatic shouting, no wand-twirling choreography, just raw focus. It's introduced at Hogwarts in the 6th year for a reason. It demands razor-sharp concentration and emotional control. Basically, if your thoughts are as messy as a teenager's diary, good luck. Nonverbal spells are like stealth mode for magic users. Useful in duels, brilliant for surprise attacks, and, let's be honest, it just looks cool. Take Snape. He's the poster child for this kind of magic. In The Half-Blood Prince, he casts defensive and offensive spells like he's barely lifting a finger. When done right, it makes you look like a magical ninja. When done wrong, well, you'll just look like you forgot the spell altogether. Now casting spells without a wand? That's a whole other level. We're talking Dumbledore tier, Voldemort-class magic. This isn't taught in school because, let's be real, most people would blow themselves up trying. Wandless magic is instinctive in children. Like that time, Harry made the glass vanish at the zoo in the Sorcerer's Stone, but controlled use? That's rare. Only the most powerful witches and wizards can pull it off with precision. There's a reason why Voldemort didn't need a broom to fly or a wand to manipulate his surroundings. He went way past the magical equivalent of a driver's license. That kind of ability means full mental mastery over magic. You don't just think of a spell, you become it. But don't get too inspired just yet. If you can't get through a transfiguration class without setting something on fire, wandless magic might not be your next step. Still, these advanced techniques open the door to a kind of magic that feels primal, deep. The kind of magic that isn't just learned, but lived. And once we understand how these powerful forms work, it only makes sense to ask, how is all this magic even organized in the first place? Magic in the wizarding world isn't just a chaotic mix of sparkly lights and dramatic Latin. It's got structure, categories, purpose. Think of it like a magical filing cabinet, except some drawers are harmless, while others explode if you open them wrong. First, there's transfiguration. This is hardcore spell work, and Professor McGonagall made it clear. It's not for the faint of heart. Turning a matchstick into a needle? That's beginner's luck. True transfiguration is all about changing the essence of something. Turning a teacup into a tortoise isn't just cosmetic, it's a full-on metaphysical makeover. Then there's conjuration, which basically says, let's create stuff out of thin air and pretend physics never existed. That's how Dumbledore can summon comfy chairs mid-crisis. But this isn't a party trick. Get it wrong, and you might end up conjuring a chair with teeth. Now, let's talk enchantments. These spells modify rather than transform. They're less flashy, but way more versatile. Take Expelliarmus, Harry's signature move. It's not about brute force, it's about strategy. Disarm, don't destroy. Enchantments are like magical nudges, subtle, efficient, and often underestimated, until someone gets flung across the room by a seemingly harmless jinx. Speaking of jinxes, let's ease into the darker stuff. Hexes and curses fall under what we'd call don't try this at home magic. Jinxes like Furunculus might just give someone an embarrassing skin problem, but curses? They're malicious by design. And once you hit the realm of the unforgivables, Avada Kedavra, Crucio, Imperio, we're talking crimes, not pranks. Those spells aren't about fun. They're about control, pain, and power. The Ministry officially banned those in 1717, by the way. Azkaban's waiting if you get too creative. But what's fascinating is how these categories reflect a wizard's intent. Are you transforming, controlling, or harming? Magic, in the end, isn't neutral. It reflects the person behind the wand. Which brings up a juicy question. Who creates these spells in the first place? Creating a spell isn't like scribbling down a recipe and hoping for the best. It's more like rewriting the laws of reality while blindfolded, and maybe on fire. Only the most advanced witches and wizards dare to mess with it. The Ministry, not exactly known for its chill attitude, set up the Experimental Spells Committee to deal with this chaos. Why? Because some people think, what if I turned someone's hair into bees? Is a valid research question. No one actually knows the full recipe for making a spell. There's no textbook titled, How to Create Magic That Won't Kill You. Probably. It's a mysterious combo of intent, deep magical theory, and more trial and error than most people are willing to admit. You have to master wand work, Latin roots, emotional focus, and still not blow up your living room. That's why most spell creators are either brilliant or slightly unhinged. Arthur Weasley once mentioned a wizard being interrogated for crafting odd ferrets, which honestly raises more questions than answers. This little anecdote in the Chamber of Secrets isn't just comic relief. It's a reminder that magical innovation walks a fine line between genius and criminal offense. The committee's job? Figure out which is which before someone turns London into a giant puffskein. Still, despite the risks, spell creation is the lifeblood of magical evolution. Every practical charm, every defensive hex, every light-up-your-wand moment started with someone asking, what if? And let's be honest, even Lumos, one of the most basic spells out there, had to be invented by someone who probably just lost a quill under the bed and refused to use a candle like a normal person. And that spark of curiosity leads to something else, the bold minds behind these spells, names that most students ignore while cramming for exams. People who didn't just follow the rules, they made new ones. And believe me, once you meet them, you'll never look at your wand the same. Way again, let's talk about the minds behind the magic, the spell creators. These folks didn't just memorize incantations, they made them. Take Nemini Radford, for instance. The guy practically specialized in making people uncomfortable, crafting jinxes that were, let's say, unpleasant at best. Imagine dedicating your magical career to inventing ways to mildly ruin someone's day. That's commitment. Then there's Elliot Smethwick, the tailor who gave us Diffindo, the spell that cuts fabric without tearing it apart like a raging Kneazle. She disguised herself as a muggle just to avoid witch hunters. Talk about multitasking. Her invention wasn't flashy, but it revolutionized magical sewing. Less, oops, I sliced my robe in half. More, look, I made a gown in 10 seconds. Not all heroes wear capes, but if they do, Elliot probably stitched them. Felix Summerby thought the world needed more joy, so he created cheerfulness. Yep, a spell to make people happier. A literal mood booster. Beats coffee. And then there's Jarlath Hobart, the guy who invented Wingardium Leviosa. He was experimenting with levitation before he could even form full sentences. Bold move for a toddler. Slightly dangerous? Sure. But hey, look how that turned out. Some spells were born out of practical need. Daisy Pennifold created Arresto Momentum so Quidditch players didn't fall to their doom. That one literally saved lives and snitch-related drama. Lavina Monkstanley, meanwhile, gave us Lumos by accident. She just wanted to find her feather at night. And boom, centuries of wand-lighting convenience. Sometimes genius is just being clumsy at the right moment, and of course we can't forget the darker inventors, Voldemort and Snape. One created Morse mortar, the creepy death cloud in the sky, and found a way to fly without a broom, which is somehow both impressive and terrifying. The other, while still a student, whipped up spells like Sectum Sempra and Levicorpus, which honestly sound like things that should come with a user manual. But this blend of brilliance and danger brings us to a bigger point. In the magical world, spells are more than flashy lights and dramatic Latin. They're how wizards function. Need to turn on a light? Lumos. Forgot to disarm your enemy? Expelliarmus. Want to casually levitate your friend's lunch tray across the room because you're bored? You guessed it. Feitizzos are everyday tools, not just for epic battles, though they help with those too. They're what separate a wizard from just being a weirdo with a stick. But here's the kicker. Knowing a spell isn't the same as mastering it. It's one thing to say Accio, and another to summon something from across the country without accidentally pulling your neighbor's cat through the window. Spells test your focus, intention, and how well you've trained your mind. A sloppy cast can turn charming into explosively regrettable real quick. Just ask Seamus Finnegan. Poor kid never caught a break. The creativity and spell usage is where things get really interesting. Take Hermione, for example, using Protego not just as a shield, but as a defensive strategy. Or Molly Weasley in Deathly Hallows going full mama bear mode with a duel that no one saw coming. Spells adapt to the witch or wizard using them, like extensions of their will. They're not just magical tools, they're personality in action. And then there's the mysterious art of creating spells. That's not just waving a wand and shouting a cool word. It takes years of study, a deep understanding of magical theory, and a little madness if we're honest. Each new spell is a reflection of the wizard who made it, a legacy carved into magical history. It's like being an inventor, except your prototype might explode or grow legs. So when someone casts a simple spell like Lumos, they're not just lighting up a room, they're tapping into centuries of magical tradition and brilliance. Every flick of the wand carries echoes of those who came before. And if that thought doesn't give you goosebumps, well, maybe you're a muggle. But, hey, we haven't even touched on how these spells are actually created yet. So, if spells don't just fall from the sky, what does that say about the wizards bold enough to create them? Could you imagine inventing magic that outlives you? If you were a witch or wizard, what kind of spell would you create? And more importantly, would it be banned immediately by the ministry? Be honest. Drop your idea in the comments, even if it's slightly illegal. We won't tell. And hey, if this kind of magical deep dive sparked your curiosity, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next spellbinding story. This world has layers most muggles never notice, and around here, we pull back the curtain. Now, if you're ready for a story that mixes heartbreak, loyalty, and a kind of magic no wand could ever replicate, click on the next video. Severus Snape's story. Love, betrayal, and redemption. Trust me, you're not ready for how deep that rabbit hole goes.